Today I want to look at Comtech EF Data CDD-564 quad demodulator. They call it a quad demodulator because there are 4 separate demods in each one RU chassis, and each one of those demodulators can be set independently of the other 3. The demod is Ethernet enabled, but it can also be controlled the same way that the Comtech 570L is controlled, using hyperterm through the serial port. As you can see on this demodulator, there are 4 separate inputs, 4 separate IF receive ports, the Ethernet, and the console port. Now I'm using hyperterm to boot this CDD-564. It looks very similar to booting the CDM570L that I did in a different video. In fact, these 2 units are members of exactly the same family. So first I'm going to look at the password configuration, because if you need to change the password, the only way to do it is by direct access through the console port, not Ethernet. There are 3 separate passwords. One is the top level, of course, that typically the administrator will handle. Another one is the field personnel who may need to look at something and make changes. And the third one is a fully restricted password, just for a user read-only. Now from the main administration screen, I press F for features, because I want to look at the overview of some of the features on this demod. Now, if you look down towards the bottom, you'll see that the number 1 is selected. That means that I'm looking at the features just of number 1 demod. And you can see from it that it's basically Vipersat, very similar to the CDM570L modem. And in fact, these 2 work together very well. Now, a quick check on the admin screen to verify that the working mode is point-to-point. I'm going to get some input from an LNB in a few minutes, just so that we can see how it operates. And it's got to be in point-to-point. Moving on, I want to look at the additional demod settings, and under the configuration menu, and again it warns us per demod, reminding us again that each demod can be separate. This is demod number 1, showing the receive frequency of 950 MHz and a very small 32 kb carrier, running turbo, QPSK 3/4. Now I want to go ahead and look at the configuration screen settings for the LNB. On demod number 1, the 18-volt DC has been enabled for the LNB, but nothing else. In some cases, the LNB would expect the 10 MHz reference, but in this case it hasn't been set. So let's return to the main menu and choose Z to select another demod. This time we'll select number 2 just to look at. Our next step is to set R for the summary of the receive parameters. It shows the summary for all 4 of them. And if you look, you'll see that basically nothing is happening, and that's perfectly okay because we haven't connected our LNB yet, and so there's no input to any of the demods. Now I'm going to test one of these demods, and so we have this funky looking home-built piece of equipment. All it does really is generate either a C-band or KU-band signal. We can put an LNB on top of it, and that simulates using an antenna. Now in this case, I've connected it to LNB number 4, and I'm looking again at the demod parameters. And you can see now that there is quite a strong signal coming in on number 4. It also shows that the LNB voltage is set to 17 volt DC. This is essential because that SSE LNB that I have on the test rack is a PLL, and it needs about 18 volt DC to be able to operate. Also the 10 MHz reference, I believe. Well, that's it for the test. I could connect that LNB or 4 LNBs at the same time if necessary, but I don't believe it's necessary just for this simple test. You can see that one channel is working fine, and we can assume that the other 3 are as well. Although before we ship, we would in fact test every one of the 4. That's it for today. Thanks.